So in the last episode, Zhang Yi was plotting to murk Commander Ken Cyan. Assassination arc, right? Wrong. Cut to Hot Spring. Together. Bubble bath besties. Zhang Yi's just chilling in the tub, acting tired, vibing in the bath. But then the door opens and... Oh no. It's the Commander, in the flesh. ALL of it. Dude walks in completely clean. Zero shame. Not even a towel for dignity. Just swinging in like it's a Tuesday. And honestly, makes perfect sense. Bro thinks he's a literal god. When you're divine, pants are optional. Modesty? Never heard of her. Laugh. Hey woo. Biggest smile in the world, like their college roommates. Chuckle. Wild night last night, huh? Zhang Yi's just chuckling, playing the loyal dog. Clear throat. Thank you for your hospitality, Commander. I'll remember this kindness forever. Chuckle. I will remember it when I end you. Commander slides into the bath, starts monologuing about how he can do anything in this country, make dreams come true, absolute power, zero consequences, peak villain who thinks he's the protagonist energy. But here's where it gets spicy. The door opens again, and in walk a dozen women. Bikinis. Every skin tone, every fantasy, carrying plates of food, drinks, instruments. They surround him, kneeling, waiting for just a glance to feed him grapes like he's a Roman emperor with a god complex. Zhang Yi watches, stunned, envious. Is he playing the long game? Or did he just forget why he came here? Let's dive in.
Fatty Sue raised his hand and questioned. Since it's a gun, isn't it possible that he's on it? Hyeon Hee-soo shook his head. It's impossible for him. Why? Fatty Sue asked. Hyeon Hee-soo said, because I once bathed with him. I saw him naked, and he wasn't carrying any guns other than his own. Moreover, judging from its size, it's hard to call that a gun. It's more like a syringe. Fatty Sue raised an eyebrow. Oh, so you're pretty brave, huh? That's not what I meant. Of course, I didn't deny it either. It's just that I took a shower with him at the time, and he wasn't carrying anything like that. Zhang Yi said calmly, stop guessing. The gun that sealed Mammon is not the kind we humans understand. Judging from Drucker's size, he was at least 50 meters tall. What was a gun to him would be a colossal tower to humans. I think there should be a place, like an underground palace beneath the island where he lived. Yang Xingxin suddenly spoke up. According to the clues in the Tui Bei 2, a golden sword lies hidden inside the east gate, and the warrior enters the Imperial Palace through the back gate. The Imperial Palace may be a homonym for the underground palace, and in the entire country of Cage, the only place that can be called the Imperial Palace is that small island. The Spear of Longinus is very likely buried underground. Zhang Yi crossed his arms and frowned, saying, but even if we can guess what it is, we can't just rush into exploring underground. First of all, we don't know all of Ken's size intelligence. We also don't know anything about the military strength of the Kingdom of Kaj. When doing things on someone else's territory, it's best to be careful. Ollie provided Zhang Yi with information about Ken Saen's abilities. Ken Saen, a fire attribute ability user, proclaims himself the sun god Amun-Ra, and his ability is the eternal sun. But the question is, how was he able to gather such a powerful force of faith in just 3 years? Zhang Yi was the most puzzled by this. Faith cannot be false. False faith is meaningless. Only by genuinely and sincerely believing in a religion or deity from the depths of one's heart can one gather the power of the soul. Leaving aside Huaxu Kingdom, Zhang Yi has countless fans at least in the Jiangnan region and Tianhai City. The people of Tianhai City revered him as a god. But Zhang Yi had never felt such power within himself before. Zhang Yi looked at Xuan Haixiu. Tell us how he did it. After a moment of silence, Xuan Haixiu slowly spoke. Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome refers to the condition where a kidnapped person develops feelings of love for their kidnapper in a specific environment. Typically, kidnapped individuals develop a fear of death and despair due to the kidnapper's threat of death. At this point, the kidnappers suddenly show their humanity and perform some friendly actions towards the kidnapped individuals. In such situations, the kidnapped person in dire straits will be moved to tears and fall in love with the kidnapper. Hyeon Hee-soo said, as you know, Africa's culture and technology are very backward. Even in the mid-21st century, 90% of the people in the country had not received an education above junior high school. At the beginning of the apocalypse, although it was not as cold as the north, the drastic changes in the environment still caused a large number of people to freeze and starve to death. One day, Ken Saen appeared out of nowhere. With overwhelming military power, he became the most powerful warlord in the Kingdom of Cage and conquered the entire country. Since he took office, people's lives have become worse than before, because when the end times come, people can still obtain food through their own abilities. North Africa has a hot climate, but it is rich in resources. Near the sea, you can catch a lot of seafood with just a small boat, and there is no problem with planting due to the permafrost. Logically speaking, after adapting to the extreme cold, this is the most suitable soil for human survival in the world. Commander Kekenseian adopted an authoritarian rule and controlled all the resources of the Kingdom of Cage. He, and a small number of high-ranking officials of the Kingdom of Cage, were able to enjoy gourmet food and live a life of luxury. But in many places outside of prison, people can't even afford a bowl of meat soup. When people are driven to the brink of despair, he will distribute some food and supplies. At this time, he becomes the sun in people's hearts, the flame of hope, and the eternal light. The propaganda apparatus has been spreading the word throughout the country that Commander Seen is the reincarnation of the sun god, an incarnation born into the world to save the people of Kaj during the Ice Age. Only those who believe in the Commander, worship the Commander, and dedicate everything to the Commander can be saved. They will have food, wealth, warm shelter, and the most beautiful women in the future. You know, most people at the bottom of society simply can't resist such temptations. Once the Commander has driven them to the brink, just giving them a sliver of hope is enough to make them obedient. Upon hearing this, Zhang Yi scoffed. I thought it was some kind of sophisticated method, but isn't this just a cult? They proclaim themselves to be the incarnation of gods or the sons of gods, making empty promises to believers based on their own created doctrines. They usually make promises about the afterlife or a next life, because these things cannot be disproven. Then, if anyone raises a question, they are subdued by violence. The rest dare not speak out against it, and so the cult leader's doctrines slowly become the truth. Hyan Hisu sighed. Who can argue with that? We're from the kingdom of Huaxu, so we can see right through his clumsy tricks. These are all things those pyramid scheme operators used to do, and we don't believe them at all. But the locals just can't help but believe it. In addition, later, European countries wanted to migrate to warmer Africa, and wars broke out in the process. The commander led his army to win several battles, which made the people more convinced that he was the savior. Shuan Haixiu spread his hands and said to Zhang Yi, in this way, he keeps the people of Cage Kingdom teetering on the edge of despair. He constantly makes them despair and then gives them hope. And so, in hell, Commander Xian became the only ray of light in their lives. How could their faith not be devout? Even some people who didn't believe at all at the beginning were driven to mental confusion, unwilling to use rational thinking to consider issues, and simply surrendered themselves to such a belief. After listening, Zhang Yi let out a long sigh. It turns out I've been too kind to those people in Tianhai City. No wonder they don't sincerely believe in themselves. Yang Xingxin laughed and said, Brother, there's nothing to envy. People with free will are more proactive. No matter how many lambs there are, they can only provide fresh meat for the jackals, but they can't fight alongside them. Don't forget, if 10,000 don't die, one will not escape. Why be that one? Zhang Yi felt much clearer about things. He nodded, that's true. Some things require talent. I really can't be as ruthless as him. But if that's the case, wouldn't the hatred in my heart be hard to quell? Lu Karen suddenly spoke up, frowning as she indicated her incomprehension. Even if they choose to worship Commander Sai because they cannot change the status quo, they should know in their hearts who caused them to live the life they have today. Commander Seen lives a life of extravagance and debauchery while they go hungry. Won't their faith waver? Xu and Haixiu scoffed. Of course it's because they don't know. Our Commander-in-Chief Saiyan claims that he eats only 1 grain of rice a day in order to save food for the Kingdom of Cage. Yang Xingxin's face was very calm. Having read history books extensively, she was all too familiar with this situation. I see, then perhaps there is a way to undermine his faith. Zhang Yi rubbed the back of his hands. Now, the most important thing is to find where the Spear of Longinus is kept. Xuan Haixiu, do you have any connections in the Kingdom of Cage? Hyan Hisu shook his head helplessly. I'm just a chef. Although I've had contact with Ken Seen, I have absolutely no access to high-level secrets. Yang Xingxin thought for a moment, then said to Zhang Yi, the Spear of Longinus is the foundation of Ken Tian's power. He won't tell anyone about its existence, so if we want to find it, we have to rely on ourselves. Lu Karen also said, there is absolutely no information about the Spear of Longinus in the information network of the Kingdom of Cage. She shrugged. The country's network is so outdated that it's mostly concentrated in Prison, while the rest of the country has virtually no network coverage. Zhang Yi rested his chin on his hands and said with a deep gaze, "We must find the Spear of Longinus as soon as possible and then leave. Otherwise, if we stay too long, I will easily be exposed." Zhang Yi was very self-aware. He was not a professional secret agent. Spending too much time around Ken Sayan makes it highly likely that he or his elite military personnel will spot your weaknesses. A wild goose leaves a trace, and everything leaves a mark. If you want to know the location of the Spear of Longinus, you need to know where and when Commander Xian rose to power. Based on these 2 points, we can basically determine where he obtained the Spear of Longinus from. Yang Xingxin gave Lu Karen a look, and Lu Karen quickly gave her an answer. Ken Sayan's hometown is in the suburbs of Morrow, more than 130 kilometers away from Prison. She used this information to search, and quickly found a lot of relevant information. He was originally a local military police officer in Morrow City, and worked in the post office. He really started to show his talent in May 2051, about 6 months after the apocalypse. Zhang Yi said, "In that case, it's necessary to go and investigate." Xuan Haixiu quickly said to Zhang Yi, "But what if we leave suddenly and his people come looking for us?" Zhang Yi looked at Xuan Haixiu and smiled slightly. "Don't worry, it only takes me a minute to go back and forth." He patted Xuan Haixiu on the shoulder. "But what you said makes sense. I haven't completely won their trust yet. They will continue to observe me, so I won't take any action for the time being. Let's take advantage of this time to investigate the city of Prison." Zhang Yi and his team raced against time, and decided to go out and take action that very night. We cannot start by investigating from the commander's residence. Instead, we must first understand the basic situation of Prison City from the surrounding area. Despite having Haiyan Hisu around, as a cook, he doesn't know everything. After all, due to the inconvenience of daily travel, he had hardly left his neighborhood or workplace in the past 3 years. For safety reasons, Zhang Yi kept Uncle Yu behind. Zhou Care changed his appearance to Wu Yanzu, while Zhang Yi had his appearance changed to something else, looking like a normal middle-class person from Prisang. Upon opening the dimensional gate, Zhang Yi vanished into the night sky in an instant. The city of Prison late at night. The capital of Cage was not brightly lit. The city is divided into 3 districts: the inner city, the middle city, and the outer city. There is a clear dividing line between the 2 areas. If you look down from space, you can see the light and shadow as distinct as steps. Xuan Haixiu explained to Zhang Yi, "Those living in the inner city are Commander Sayan and his relatives, as well as the elders who followed him in the past. These people enjoy the most luxurious life and can enjoy all kinds of nutritious food every day. Those who live in the middle city are second-ranking officials and senior technicians. Their standard of living is a bit lower than that of the inner city, but they don't have to worry about keeping warm. They can even enjoy some entertainment. Those living in the outer city are the ordinary people of Prison. They receive a ration of food each month, but they often go hungry. People living here almost never have the opportunity to rise in social class in their entire lives, and can only earn a living in lower-class factories." After thinking for a moment, Zhang Yi decided to go to the outer city area first. Start by learning about this place. It's less likely to expose your true intentions. The entire outer city was completely without power at night, but as he flew through the air, he saw many shadowy figures moving about in the area where the outer city and the middle city met. Keep in mind, it's past 2 a.m. even in Africa. The outside temperature is already degrees Celsius. Who would be out in the cold wind at a time like this? Zhang Yi usually wears combat gear and doesn't feel the cold. At this moment, he was only wearing black, close-fitting soft armor for disguise, but he could still feel the low temperature outside on his face and hands. The midnight wind blowing on my face and the back of my hands felt like someone was cutting my skin with a knife. It hurt so much. The world was dark, so Zhang Yi landed naturally on the ground and headed towards the area where the central city and the outer city met. Fortunately, there is a very wide river here. When you get onto the bridge, you can see those figures whispering to each other. Suddenly, a clear voice rang out in front of Zhang Yi. "Sir, would you like to buy flowers?" Zhang Yi looked down and saw a figure wrapped in a tattered cotton coat. Despite the freezing weather, she was dressed rather thinly, and her face was red and cracked from the cold. This is a mixed-race face, and the child looks only 13 or 14 years old. "Flower?" Zhang Yi was stunned for a moment. In this freezing weather, there are still people selling flowers. The girl continued, You can buy safflowers here for just 5 jin of rice. If you don't like safflowers, there are also ladies selling blue and yellow flowers. Zhang Yi vaguely sensed that something was amiss, but looking at the girl in front of him who was less than chest-high and only about 10 years old, he didn't dare to think in that direction. Shuan Haixiu's voice rang in Zhang Yi's ear. "Sir, this is a flower girl. You'd better leave as soon as possible. I've only heard of her before, but I never expected to see her for the first time, especially since it's because of you." Zhang Yi asked in a low voice, "What happened?" Hyun Hisu explained. Even in the outer city of Prison, many people go hungry. In such times, many women with limited labor capacity have no choice but to sell their bodies in order to get enough to eat. Selling flowers is a code word. Red flowers refer to women aged 10 to 20. Unmarried women aged 20 are called blue flowers, and married women are called yellow flowers. As for widows who have lost their husbands, they are called purple flowers. I've always heard people say that there are many women like this around Prison. They support themselves and even their families by doing this. They appear on the outskirts of the city at night after the power goes out. Zhang Yi listened silently, feeling somewhat moved, but didn't express much of his feelings. He had witnessed too much misery in this world, and he had important matters to attend to at the moment, so he couldn't let this delay him. The girl in front of me looks too young. If she hadn't really been desperate to survive, why would she have become a flower girl? Seeing that Zhang Yi didn't speak, the girl's excited voice trembled in the cold wind. "Sir, I'm very cheap. If it's really too much, I can give you a discount. I haven't eaten for 2 days, I'm starving. Please have mercy on me." Her voice was filled with sobs. Zhang Yi raised his head and looked around. Along the riverbank, there were women selling flowers everywhere, their figures indistinct. Not far from the riverbank, there are rows of houses. Some of them also have parents, husbands, or even children in their families. They bring their guests back to their homes, where, separated from their families by only a wall, they sell their bodies for food. This is just one corner of Prison, and this place is also the capital of the Kingdom of Cage. No. Zhang Yi used a smart device to simulate the fluent and clear Kaja language, coldly answered the flower seller, and then walked past her indifferently. The flower girl's eyes were filled with despair. She hadn't eaten for 2 days. She didn't have to do this kind of thing. Her brother could work on the farm, and she also helped sew clothes on the farm, which was enough for the 2 of them to survive. But a few days ago, her brother fell ill. Residents of the outer city had no savings. No matter how hard they tried, they could only afford to eat their fill and wear clothes to keep warm. Therefore, an illness can directly destroy a family. In the end, she had no choice but to put aside all her shame and go out to sell flowers, just hoping that she and her brother could survive. However, she wasn't pretty. Even the most beautiful girl would become unattractive under the relentless onslaught of the biting wind. Even the most beautiful girl would become emaciated if she couldn't get enough to eat and replenish her protein. Nobody gave her a second glance. Zhang Yi's departure caused her to crouch down in despair, cover her face, and cry. But suddenly, she felt something pressing against her waist. The girl was somewhat surprised. She reached into her pocket and felt the familiar sensation. It was a bag of grain. She was incredibly excited, initially thinking it was just her imagination. Only after confirming several times that there was no problem did she turn around to see who had left her the food. But it was too dark, and there were shadowy figures everywhere, so the person from before could no longer be found. The night was quiet, and all Zhang Yi could see in the outer city were flower girls and men buying flowers. Most of these people are from Midtown. Although they earn a modest salary, they still have a surplus after making ends meet. After all, who could resist the temptation of a night of pleasure for just a little rice? They can enjoy cheap services, all of which rely on the extremely low personal value of the lower classes. As for the people in the inner city, they would never come to such a place. At night, everyone in the outer city went to bed early, except for the flower sellers. The power goes out after nightfall in the outer city, making it impossible to engage in any entertainment activities. Moreover, the weather is freezing cold, and coupled with hunger, they rarely get any exercise beyond maintaining their basic daily needs. Zhang Yi surveyed the entire city of Prison with his own eyes. He needed to have a complete grasp of this area to facilitate his subsequent action plans. During his battle with King Arthur, he said that geography is very important. In the event of a conflict, any small detail could be fatal. There's nothing interesting to see in the outer city, and there aren't any tall buildings. It's mostly just single-story houses. There were tall buildings, but they were all demolished. Zhang Yi asked Chuan Haixiu, puzzled. At a time like this, given the construction industry level of Cage Kingdom, it should be difficult to build houses on a large scale. Why destroy so many tall buildings? Upon hearing this, Xuan Haixiu said to Zhang Yi, "Turn around and look at the very center of Cage Kingdom." Zhang Yi turned around as expected. He stood in the darkness, but when he turned around, there was a bright light. The entire city of Prison exhibits a very regular gradient of colors. From the outer city to the inner city, the light grew brighter and brighter. The brightest spot, which shines like the sun even in the darkness, is a colossal statue visible from every corner. Atop a massive stone monument, over 100 meters tall, stands a golden sun. "Could that be?" Xuan Haixiu said. "That's right. That statue symbolizes Commander Sin's eternal sun. No building in the entire city can be taller than the commander's residence, nor can it block the path of the eternal sun as it shines its light upon the entire city. Therefore, all high-rise buildings were demolished." Zhang Yi remained silent. He was a guy who would sacrifice others for his own and his companions' benefit. However, he doesn't like this kind of formalism. Even the slogans of the Shadow Squad are merely a means to brainwash these subordinates and prevent them from betraying them. Zhang Yi swiftly swept across the night sky, leaving no sound. As a bishop-level expert, Zhang Yi's spatial attributes are already among the best in the world. No one could detect his presence, nor could they sense his spatial fluctuations. And so he toured the outer city of Prison. Flower girls were everywhere, and the outer city was deathly silent in the dark night, with only sobs coming from some dilapidated houses. Their families, just a wall away, silently endured this helplessness, or perhaps they had long since become numb and accustomed to it. After viewing the outer city, Zhang Yi headed towards the central city. The standard of living here is significantly better, but it's not exactly affluent. Most people here can eat their fill, but many are still quite thin. That's because they haven't been able to get enough nutrition for a long time. Once you reach the inner city, it will be a completely different world. Neon lights are lit up indiscriminately, without any concern for wasting electricity. The streets are adorned with colorful lights, and luxury cars that are rarely seen during the day now flock to the entrances of hotels and nightclubs. Zhang Yi quietly appeared in a hotel, observing the lives of the high society figures there. He saw that there was an enormous theater inside the hotel. That stage alone can accommodate hundreds of people performing at the same time. The seating area below was even larger, with well-dressed figures sitting behind tables, each accompanied by one or more elegantly dressed beauties. The lights came on the stage, and the band, dressed in suits, immediately began to play. Soon after, beautiful girls in performance costumes filed out from the backstage on both sides. They are all quite young, ranging from 18 or 19 to their early 20s, with very few over 30. They were beautiful and charming, dressed in revealing clothing that showed off their dazzlingly white thighs and slender arms. Each of them wore a number tag with Arabic numerals on it. Their dancing to the music brought smiles to the faces of the important figures below. They pointed and gestured at the stage, while staff members naturally helped them write down the girl's number. Zhang Yi couldn't help but gasp. "I'm not someone who hasn't seen the world, but even in Blizzard City, the headquarters of the Jiangnan region after the apocalypse, I've never seen anything like this." The most spectacular scene was when he took Fatty Sue to pick people in order to deal with the burial master. That time, the entire Blizzard City clubhouse gathered, but there were only about 100 girls. As for Zhu Zheng, if he dares to spend so much energy to build an extremely luxurious entertainment venue, not only will ordinary people complain, but even many in the upper echelons of Blizzard City will raise objections, believing that he is incapable of governing Blizzard City. After all, in a civilized country, people tend to act with decorum. Where else can you find a place like Cage Kingdom, where they don't even bother to put on an act, openly creating such a scene of debauchery just a few dozen kilometers from the outer city? The outer city is full of flower girls who sell their bodies just to survive, while the people here spend money like water. A single night spending here can be equivalent to a whole family's food for a year in the outer city. Zhang Yi sighed. It's hard to imagine that this will happen in the mid-21st century. Even when Zhu Zheng wanted to enjoy life, he did it secretly behind people's backs. However, such clubs operate openly and brazenly in the central area of Prison City. Those who come here are all dignitaries and important figures from Prison. But considering Commander-in-Chief Sion's own extravagant banquet, everything became clear. When superiors have certain preferences, those below will follow suit to an extreme degree. People will imitate the behavior of those in power. Shuan Haixiu explained to Zhang Yi. The girls on the stage are actually flower girls. They were carefully selected from the outer city, and only the most beautiful flower girls can step onto this stage, because this is their only chance to achieve upward social mobility. Once they are noticed by a big shot, their whole family will move to Midtown. Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow and said casually, "I think I have a basic understanding of this place." He had no intention of taking any action. He simply wanted to observe the city as an observer and plan his future actions. I overheard a conversation between several pot-bellied high-ranking officials. They embraced two young women, enjoying their services while engaging in lively conversation. "We are doing this for the people of Kaj. If we don't consume, they will struggle to even survive." "That's right, so we're doing good deeds. We deserve good fortune." Zhang Yi heard Zhou Ke's somewhat indignant voice. In a post-apocalyptic world, enjoying a high quality of life is understandable. But such extravagance and waste, which consumes a large amount of the capital that ordinary people rely on for a living, is evil. Even Zhang Yi, who never considered himself a good person, began building a happy home after ensuring that he and those around him had safety and sufficient food, providing shelter for many people in Tianhai City. Today, Tianhai City has a total population of over 80,000. To put it bluntly, every one of them was well-fed and clothed, and none of them were starving. Thanks to Lu Karen's technology, they no longer need to work hard every day, like they did at the beginning of the apocalypse, running generators or doing low-level labor. The people of Huaxu Kingdom are taught from childhood that when poor, one should cultivate one's own virtue. When successful, one should benefit all under heaven. It's really hard to stand by and watch this scene unfold. Every country has its own circumstances. We are not saviors. Let's complete our own tasks first. Zhang Yi said in a somewhat low voice. He can give a flower girl a few pounds of grain, but how can he help a country with a population of over 20 million? Fortunately, Zhang Yi wasn't one to dwell on things, and he quickly stopped thinking about the problem. After one night, he returned to his residence. The woman who had been brought to him was lying in the bedroom, completely absorbed in Yang Xingxin's illusion. Zhang Yi told everyone to rest first, and to take turns on duty at night to prevent any accidents from happening. Of course, he wouldn't sleep with the black woman, but to avoid leaving evidence, he wrapped her in a blanket and threw her into another room, then went to bed and slept. Anyway, before she receives Yang Xingxin's orders, she will be like a hypnotized person, trapped in the illusion woven by Yang Xingxin, so there's no need to pay any attention to her. After resting for about 6 hours, Zhang Yi woke up. After waking up, he went to the living room and took out clean water from the alternate dimension to wash up. Unexpectedly, Lu Karen and Yang Xingxin were not resting, but were discussing something in the living room. Zhang Yi glanced at the window subconsciously. If there were lights here at night, it would be spotted by outsiders. Lu Karen said proudly, "Don't worry, brother, the whole house looks like an illusion from the outside. Karen wouldn't make such a low-level mistake." Zhang Yi walked over and asked with concern, "But you look like you've been up all night. That's not good for your health." Lu Karen made a face at Zhang Yi. "Brother, we've been in Mu Yan's shadow all day, so we can sleep later. While you're resting, we've organized the information we got yesterday." As Lu Karen spoke, he spread his hands, projecting several screens in front of him. Zhang Yi rested his chin on his hand and examined it carefully. Lu Karen carefully explained to Zhang Yi from the side, "I obtained this intelligence based on my analysis of the entire Cage Kingdom cyber intelligence system. The overall level of superhumans in the Kingdom of Cage is not high. Although it has a population of more than 20 million, the number of registered superhumans is no more than 2,000, and most of them are low-level superhumans." Zhang Yi said calmly, "There's nothing strange about that. With too few deaths, the spiritual essence cannot be separated from the physical body and absorbed by others. Naturally, the number of superhumans born is smaller." But Lu Karen's tone immediately became serious. "Something strange has happened." Zhang Yi looked at Lu Karen curiously, waiting for her to continue. Lu Karen waved her hand, and a screen was pushed in front of Zhang Yi. Although the overall level of the mutants is very poor, there are 6 mutants of the Ypsilon level among them. That's quite astonishing. Zhang Yi squinted, looking at the information of the people on the screen. The most powerful person in the Kingdom of Cage is Commander Ken Sayan. It's strange that even though he is already the king of a country, he still prefers to be called commander. It seems to be because he was originally a leader of the rebel army. Zhang Yi waved his hand. "I can understand. It's like how that great Prussian tyrant used to like wearing his iron cross on his chest, because in their eyes it was their most prized honor. Lu Karen continued, none of Ken Sayan's data exists in the entire Cage Kingdom's network system. Well, although there is a lot of information, according to analysis, 99.99% of it is fabricated. For example, the heroic deeds of the divinely appointed commander-in-chief of the Kingdom of Cage, how he used a small stone to pierce through 100 ice chariots of the hateful Roman Empire's heavy armor legion. I ignored this kind of information that was obviously just hype and deification. Zhang Yi nodded. Ken Sayan isn't stupid. He understands the importance of intelligence to mutants. That's why he'd rather delete all details and intelligence about his battles from the official Cage Kingdom system. Through the window, he could clearly see the Eternal Sun monument standing in the central square of prison. He wouldn't even erect a statue in his own image, which shows how cautious he was. Zhang Yi frowned, his gaze sharp. This guy is a tough one to deal with. I have to find the Spear of Longinus as soon as possible, otherwise it's only a matter of time before he finds it. After speaking, Zhang Yi turned around and looked at Lu Karen. What about the remaining 0.01%? Is it valuable? Lu Karen said, yes, there are. For example, it records the place where he was born, as well as an embellished version of his growth experience. Yang Xingxin looked up at Zhang Yi. Brother, this is very important information. Perhaps we can find the origin of the Spear of Longinus through this. Zhang Yi thought about it and felt it made perfect sense. He was also very curious about what exactly the Spear of Longinus was. He needed to figure that out first to facilitate his next move. Where is his hometown? Lu Karen said. His hometown is not far from Pulisan City, only 135 kilometers away. It's in the northwest, in a place called Yuru District. Zhang Yi leaned back on the sofa, arms crossed. We need to go there and investigate. But before that, we need to figure out the pattern of how Commander Scene holds banquets. What if he leaves this place rashly and QEZ brings his men to find him? Wouldn't that expose him? As for splitting up, that's even more impossible. The transportation here is terrible. Even the buses are the kind that were phased out by the Huoxu Kingdom half a century ago. Without his ability to use spatial powers to get there, anyone else would have been discovered to be acting strangely halfway there. The risk is too great. We can't send anyone over to do this. He still has to do it himself. Brother, there's also information on the 5 Epsilon-level combatants from the Kingdom of Cage. Would you like to take a look? Lu Karen's voice interrupted Zhang Yi's thoughts. Zhang Yi looked up. Well, tell me about it. Ken Sayan rose through the ranks of the military, holding the rank of the first 6-star general in the history of Cage, and even the world, a divinely appointed commander-in-chief, a marshal with eternal glory, and the son of the people that never falls. Zhang Yi's head was throbbing from listening. Wait, a 6-star general and a marshal? What nonsense is this? Lu Karen covered her mouth and laughed. Who knows, he probably just thought it sounded more impressive to shout like that. Africa's military system is already quite chaotic. Ken Sayan, who was born in this place, has little education. As for his claim of doing business in the eastern part of Huoxu Kingdom, he is most likely just an illegal immigrant who trades goods. Zhang Yi had suspected this when they first met. He ate fine food and drank expensive liquor, but his eating manners were anything but elegant. Especially when he drank Remy Martin cognac, it was like a cow drinking water. Zhang Yi felt a little more at ease. My higher education level than the other party means I'm smarter than Commander-in-Chief, haha. Zhang Yi thought with a touch of pride. Immediately afterwards, Lu Karen introduced several of Ken Sayan's trusted men to Zhang Yi. First, since Commander Ken Sayan's highest rank in the military was Major General, there were no other generals in the entire country of Cage besides him. The highest rank is Senior Colonel. Therefore, all 5 of them were Colonel's-level officers. The first one, we've all met him. It's QEZ, the captain of Commander Scene's personal guard. He's Commander Scene's most trusted confidant and the person closest to him. Below him were 3 field officers in charge of the military. These 3 were brothers. The eldest brother Park Gukchang, the second brother Park Gukkai, and the youngest brother Park Changbayam. As Zhang Yi listened, he sensed something was amiss. After a moment's thought, he gave a thumbs up. These 3 brothers' parents are both incredibly talented. Lu Karen continued. The 5th person is Jin Meiji, the vice mayor of Pulisang City, who is in charge of all administrative matters in Pulisang City. Zhang Yi asked with some surprise, why is she only the deputy mayor? Is there someone above her? Lu Karen shook her head. According to intelligence, the real power in the administrative organs of Cage is held by the deputies. The head of the government is a respected elder in the local area. Zhang Yi rubbed his chin. These are really strange rules. So what are their abilities? Lu Karen scratched her head and gave an embarrassed, playful smile. Hee, there's no record of it either. Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow. Although Cage was a poor and backward country, its rulers were not fools. To avoid targeting top combat forces, this information was not uploaded to the internet. However, based on our previous exchanges with the Holy See, the strength of the 5 colonel-level officers is far inferior to that of Commander-in-Chief Scene. The highest-ranking officer is no more than the Black Chariot. Lu Karen analyzed. Judging from the structure of the Kingdom of Cage, in order to ensure the power he obtained through force, Commander Scene would certainly not allow anyone who could threaten his rule to exist. After listening to what Lu Karen said, Zhang Yi said calmly, I basically understand the distribution of military power in this country. This time before Yang Xingxin could even speak, Zhang Yi, relying on his intelligence and experience, analyzed the situation. This country uses totalitarian rule to extract the faith of the lower classes. This power is concentrated at the top. The entire kingdom is structured like a pyramid, with those at the top plundering those at the bottom. This includes not only food and supplies, but also the extraction of their faith. Layer upon layer, no one can escape the rules of this pyramid. And the ultimate beneficiary, the person at the top of the food chain, is Commander Ken Scene. This is practically his own kingdom. Zhang Yi sighed sincerely. Brother, the map of the commander's residence only shows the above-ground portion. This is all the information that is publicly available, but there is no information about the basement. Lu Karen said, Zhang Yi believes that the Spear of Longinus is most likely located beneath the commander's residence. However, without a detailed topographical map, it is indeed not easy to sneak in. Zhang Yi never takes risks, so he must thoroughly investigate that place before making any further plans. Don't rush, we'll have another chance to go there later. We'll investigate when the banquet starts. And this waiting time didn't last long. The commander-in-chief, after all, loves Cantonese cuisine and hadn't had it in a long time. With a new chef who's quite skilled, he naturally had to enjoy it to the fullest. So the next afternoon, QEZ drove with his men to Zhang Yi's residence. Upon seeing QEZ, Zhang Yi adopted a fawning demeanor. Sir, what are your orders? QEZ entered the room and casually glanced around. When he saw some marks on the sheets and sofa, he nodded in satisfaction. He then said to Zhang Yi, the commander-in-chief is hosting a banquet tonight. As the head chef, you need to go there early to prepare the food. Remember, make the most authentic Cantonese cuisine. As he spoke, he took a slip of paper out of his pocket and handed it to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi took it and almost couldn't help but twitch his lips. The menu listed dishes as dragon, tiger, and phoenix, steamed turtle penis, braised rabbit head, fried frog, and braised beef delight. The commander's tastes were indeed extraordinary. Once people get used to a good life and eat delicacies, they will start to crave novelty. Zhang Yi said calmly, are the ingredients ready? When I cook, I always need the freshest ingredients. QEZ adjusted his glasses. We'll prepare all the ingredients so you don't need to worry. Seemingly because of the precedent of Hyun Hee-soo's defection, Choi Teek did not let Zhang Yi choose the ingredients himself. Zhang Yi didn't care, since he wouldn't have to eat these things anyway. He was then led downstairs by QEZ's men, while QEZ called the black woman over and asked in a low voice, did you notice anything wrong with him? The black woman looked shy and said, his problem is very big. QEZ frowned immediately, while the black woman's smile blossomed like a flower. I have never had such a pleasurable experience. He was like a mad lion that completely conquered me. QEZ's expression was somewhat strange. That's amazing. He couldn't help but mutter something under his breath. However, this also dispelled some of his doubts about Zhang Yi. After all, it seems that Zhang Yi perfectly embodies both greed and lust. The more flaws a person has, the more trustworthy they are, because such a person will not risk their life. Zhang Yi got into the car, but this time, the curtains weren't completely drawn. Now that we've arrived in Prison City, it's impossible for him to escape like Hyun Hee-soo, so there's no need to make sure he can't see the way. Sure enough, we boarded the boat a little over an hour later, and then landed on the small island. The island has a unique charm when viewed during the day. Even Zhang Yi felt that his Skycia fortress wasn't this luxurious, because Commander Sion had truly taken the concept of extravagance to its extreme. He confiscated all the resources of the entire Kingdom of Cage, solely for his own pleasure. There are also people specifically watching over the food while it's being prepared. Zhang Yi showed no unusual behavior. He did nothing during the day. It would be better to wait until evening, after the banquet had begun, and after the commander and the upper-class figures from Pulison City had gotten quite drunk, before having Mu Yan lead the others to infiltrate the residence as shadows to conduct a search. Nothing particularly noteworthy happened throughout the afternoon. As QEZ said, Commander Sai En usually doesn't wake up until midnight. This is very important intelligence for Zhang Yi. Next time I go out, I'll have to avoid this time of day. It wasn't until after 10 p.m. that the island began to gradually come alive. Those invited to the banquet were all upper-class figures from prison, dressed in splendid military uniforms and suits, accompanied by beautiful women, or some were on large yachts, from which came alluring women who wore skirts and exposed their thighs even in the cold season. Zhang Yi saw many familiar faces inside. They were the big shots and VIPs he had seen at the inner-city nightclubs the night before. These people were waiting early, and Zhang Yi's dishes were almost ready, placed in a special temperature-controlled box, to be served when the banquet began. And so they waited until after 1 a.m. Zhang Yi was getting impatient. Half a day had passed in this mess, and he couldn't use any smart devices here. The agents monitoring him weren't chatting with him much either, and he was incredibly bored. Finally, we received the order to serve the food. Zhang Yi, along with several kitchen helpers, personally pushed the food to the banquet hall on a cart. The place was magnificent, brightly lit, and incredibly ornately decorated, but Zhang Yi found the style somewhat tacky. The extensive use of gold in the decoration gives off a strong, nouveau, rich vibe. Compared to his enormous manner, it's nowhere near as classy. In terms of aesthetics, he is far inferior to both the young Master Wang of yesteryear and the current girls like Zhou Care. The commander sat lazily in his chair, took a bottle of Remy Martin from a waiter, and drank it rudely in large gulps. Everyone was waiting for the commander's orders. These people are like NPCs. Their purpose in attending the banquet is not to have fun, but to keep the commander entertained. They would only accompany the commander to do whatever he liked or wanted to do. Their own thoughts were completely ignored, and no one dared to get truly drunk. The commander smiled as he saw Wu Yanzu standing respectfully to the side and extended his hand to him, saying, "Chef Wu, this is your first time attending my banquet. Do you know that I prepare a special gift for everyone who comes to my place for the first time?" Zhang Yi had heard about the commander's perverse tastes from Xuan Haixiu. He feigned surprise and asked, "Are you going to give me a reward?" His greedy look made the commander burst into laughter. He really likes greedy people. If a person doesn't smoke, drink, is greedy for money, or love women, then that person must have other, more terrifying schemes. It's something better than money. As he spoke, he gestured to the guards behind him. There were many people in the banquet hall, but no one said a word. They were all quietly watching Zhang Yi and the commander-in-chief. The scene was somewhat chilling. Soon, the guards brought over a donkey with a bundle of big red flowers tied to its head. Zhang Yi frowned. Does this mean he wants to eat donkey meat today? However, it's not like we're only bringing the ingredients now. Zhang Yi thought for a moment and asked, "Commander, would you like to eat donkey meat sashimi?" Commander Sai suddenly raised his voice. "Wu, how can this donkey be used for eating?" He called Zhang Yi aside, grinned mischievously, and whispered in his ear. "When I was doing business in eastern Guangdong, they taught me a special way of doing things called patting a donkey's butt." Zhang Yi looked completely bewildered. He had heard of flattery, but he had never heard of flattering a donkey. At this moment, within the shadow space, Xuan Haixiu's voice was transmitted directly to Zhang Yi's brain via electronic signals. "Holy crap, Mr. Zhang, this guy's trying to scam you. We're doomed." Zhang Yi's mind went blank. Although she didn't know what was going on, she could sense that things were going to get really bad. The other people in the banquet hall didn't seem to know what was about to happen either, and they all looked at the two people and the donkey with curiosity. Commander-in-Chief said admired Zhang Yi's complete ignorance of what was about to happen demeanor. He chuckled, "This so-called flattery, well, it's just omitting 100 words, you understand." Zhang Yi. The crowd, the faces of QEZ and the other guards were expressionless, as if they had grown accustomed to their commander's eccentricities. But what they were really thinking was, holy shit. Zhang Yi admitted that he had rarely had such an experience in his 30 years of life. Even when he was constantly teetering between life and death, he had never fallen into a state like this. His brain completely shut down. A genuine system outage. The commander-in-chief burst into laughter when he saw Wu Yanzu standing there dumbfounded and frozen in place. He slapped Zhang Yi on the butt and said sternly, "Would I specially let you experience this special? Haha, special form of entertainment, you don't want to." Zhang Yi snapped out of her daze, her neck turning stiffly like a robot's. His face turned white, really white. At that moment, an impulse arose in his mind. "I'm not pretending anymore, I'm going to fight you to the death." Although he had considered that infiltration would be a difficult task, and might require paying a price if necessary, Zhang Yi absolutely could not accept such a thing. At this moment, not only Zhang Yi was unable to accept it, but his team members in the shadow space were also collectively stunned. Suddenly, Yang Xingxin was the first to react. Her voice trembled uncharacteristically as she cried out to Zhang Yi, "Brother, brother, please don't agree." She couldn't imagine that her favorite and most admired brother, Zhang Yi, would be with a donkey. Zhang Yi's mind was in complete chaos. His expression showed great satisfaction from Commander Xin, who loved to tease and humiliate others. "Hey, Chef Wu, what are you waiting for? Are you trying to refuse my offer?" Commander Sai said with a stern face. Zhang Yi was caught in a dilemma. First and foremost, and most importantly, he would never flatter a donkey. However, right now, on Commander-in-Chief's territory, if he were to directly turn against the commander, the consequences would be extremely severe. Even today, he is not confident that he can stand up to Commander Saiyan here. The commander's residence is inevitably the area where his power is strongest. Zhang Yi was confident he could escape from him, but not sure he could kill him. If we alert the enemy, it will be even more difficult to obtain the Spear of Longinus. In that case, all our efforts will be in vain. Zhang Yi was unwilling to face either outcome. Zhang Yi's mind worked incredibly fast. He was always quick-witted. If you want to solve a problem, the best way is to solve the problem of the person who raised it. What was Commander-in-Chief's purpose in ordering him to do this? First, test whether he is a spy. Secondly, she simply enjoys teasing him. Of the two possibilities, the second is more likely. Given the commander's personality, if he has any suspicions about someone, he can act without even investigating. Zhang Yi didn't have much time, so his brain worked at lightning speed, and he finally found a way to solve the immediate problem. He deliberately put on a pitiful look, bending over and rubbing his lower back. "Your Excellency, how could I refuse your kindness? It's just that the beauty you sent me last night was too amazing. My legs were weak when I woke up this morning, and now I'm powerless." Zhang Yi was well aware of Commander Sai En's mindset, a powerful and ruthless tyrant who enjoys toying with others for amusement, and who most desires to see others make a fool of themselves in front of him. For a man, what could be more humiliating than publicly admitting that he is impotent? Sure enough, as soon as Zhang Yi said this, everyone in the room burst into laughter. Even Commander Saiyan was so amused that he tilted his head back and burst into laughter. Looking at his exposed neck, Zhang Yi really had the urge to chop it off and watch his head fly off. QEZ naturally relayed what the black woman next to Zhang Yi had said to Commander Sai En. Therefore, he knew that Zhang Yi was not lying. That's why he brought a donkey, just to humiliate Zhang Yi and make him look foolish on the spot. You should know that he specifically had someone select this donkey from the farm. Zhang Yi chuckled awkwardly, scratching the back of his head. He didn't have any of that strongman bias. A true man knows when to yield and when to stand firm. After Commander Sai finished laughing, he pointed at Zhang Yi and said, "You really are a glutton. I thought you hadn't had enough fun today, so I picked out a good one for you." The laughter from the crowd continued. They laughed even louder than Commander Saiyan in an attempt to please him. And once one person starts laughing, the others start laughing like they're in a competition, each trying to outdo the other in exaggeration. Later on, they looked like a bunch of clowns. Commander-in-Chief Sane stopped laughing, and many others followed suit, except for one officer who couldn't stop laughing because he had gone too far. Commander Sai glanced at him, a hint of disgust flashing in his eyes. He then looked at the donkey adorned with a large red flower and said to the officer, "Since Chef Wu is not feeling well today, this donkey is yours to enjoy." Major Chi Taiyuan. The eyes of everyone in the banquet hall immediately fell on Chi Taiyuan. Everyone subconsciously distanced themselves from him, their eyes filled with a mixture of schadenfreude and pity. Chi Taiyuan laughed for a long time, then suddenly realized that he was in a vacuum, and everyone had stopped laughing and was staring at him. He was stunned and didn't know what had happened. QEZ stepped forward and said loudly, "Major Chi Taiyuan, the Commander-in-Chief has bestowed this donkey upon you, so you can take Chef Wu's place in patting the donkey's rear end. Now, thank the Commander-in-Chief for his kindness." Chi Taiyuan froze on the spot. His laughter abruptly stopped, and his face turned as white as a corpse in an instant. Visibly, the face changed from red to white in an instant. He was truly a master of face changing. He opened his mouth, but couldn't utter a single word, because everyone knew that the commander's words were absolutely not to be disobeyed. Otherwise, there is only one outcome awaiting him. A guard led the donkey over and placed it in the center of the banquet hall. People gathered around it in a large circle, looking at Chi Taiyuan and the donkey with indifferent and mocking expressions. "Major Chi, let's begin." Zhang Yi stared at the officer, wanting to see if the man could tolerate such an insult. A moment later, his face lost all expression, and his eyes became as still as dead water. He had no choice but to walk over blankly. Zhang Yi watched helplessly as he did that incomprehensible thing in front of dozens of onlookers. A burst of laughter rang out from the side. Zhang Yi looked over and saw that Commander Scene had an extremely excited look on his face. He picked up the wine glass next to him and drank it all in one gulp. Then bursts of laughter echoed throughout the banquet hall once again. The band also started playing music at the right time. People laughed and jumped around Cha Ti-wan, dancing wildly to the frenzied music. Happiness belongs to everyone, except for Cha Ti-wan. Zhang Yi smiled, but in his heart he felt that the scene was utterly absurd. That evening, Zhang Yi also received a wine cup representing his status as a favored member of the imperial court, and they played together all night. They played all sorts of absurd games, and when they got really into it, Commander Scene even made the red and blue flowers strip naked and jump into the pool, making grunting noises like pigs. He walked over, put his arm around Zhang Yi's shoulder, his eyes sweeping over everyone present with disdain. "So, wasn't my banquet wonderful and exciting?" Zhang Yi nodded. "This is truly an eye-opener for me. I've never seen or even heard of such a splendid and spectacular banquet anywhere else." Commander Saiyan wore a smug expression. "Of course, my banquet must be the best in the world." He patted Zhang Yi on the shoulder. "Wu, you're a very interesting person. I really like you. Tonight, any woman here who catches your eye, just tell me, and I can arrange for her to be yours, haha." Upon hearing this, Zhang Yi deliberately swallowed and his gaze fell on the women. But then he shook his head. "That's not a good idea. They all seem to be taken." "Hey, why not? If I say it's okay, then it's okay. Whichever one you like, you can take it to the back right now." Zhang Yi licked his lips, revealing a lecherous look, then hesitated for a long time before ordering 4 in one go. At this moment, QEZ suddenly spoke up. "Wu, didn't you say you weren't feeling well today?" Zhang Yi said matter-of-factly, "That just shows you don't know what you're doing. I have other methods." Commander Saiyan laughed even harder and arranged a room with a large bed for Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi was equally unreserved, deliberately feigning excitement. He knew that this was also a test. Once inside the room, the same method was used. Lu Karen, who had already gained control of the entire Cage Kingdom's network, deceived the surveillance, and Yang Xingxin then created illusions for them. Zhang Yi sat by the window in the room, but his heart was completely unmoved. "They're having a great time. It's time for us to get moving," he said to the shadow beneath his feet. "Mu Yan, begin searching this residence according to the original plan." Mu Yan's concealment ability reaches its peak in the dark of night, and only top-tier spatial ability users like Zhang Yi can detect her. Meanwhile, the top experts in the mansion were protecting Commander Scene and a group of high society figures near the banquet hall, making other areas easier to infiltrate. Without hesitation, Mu Yan followed the prearranged plan and immediately left the room through the crack in the door. Zhang Yi sat in the corner of the room and silently lit a cigarette. Ken Saiyan's madness exceeded his imagination. His understanding of humanity had reached a monstrous level. Zhang Yi saw something mutant in his eyes. This is perhaps inevitable, an entity that gains supreme power through violence and slaughter, and under whose rule everyone must submit, will eventually come to believe that it is a god. Everyone else is considered a lower form of being. Zhang Yi had experienced similar emotions before, but because he had the companionship of his lover, elders, and friends such as Zhou Care, Uncle Yu, and Fatty Su, he did not lose his humanity. Therefore, he understood that once people begin to lose their humanity, they become terrifying. That's why he had to rely heavily on alcohol, crazy games, and manipulating human nature in order to find his human side. Just now, for a fleeting moment, Zhang Yi had the urge to kill him. However, after much deliberation and considering the potential consequences, he decided not to take action. "I'll leave immediately after I get the spear of Longinus. Let them sort out their own mess here," Zhang Yi murmured, but at that moment, a voice rang in his heart again. Without the intervention of external forces, This country will forever remain a paradise for that madman. Zhang Yi retorted, "What does that have to do with me? I am incapable of shouldering the responsibility of saving a nation. Besides, even if we eliminate Commander-in-Chief Sane, who can guarantee that the next one won't be even worse?" The voice continued, "No one can predict the future, but without making changes, the cage will remain forever." Zhang Yi suppressed the restlessness in his heart. After gaining immense power, he would also develop a sense of superiority, and for example, he might occasionally want to act as a savior. However, knowing that he would find it difficult to defeat his opponent in the realm of command, he would not take the risk. Mu Yan led everyone to begin exploring this massive commander's residence. It was less of an official residence, and more of a huge palace built on an island in the middle of a lake. There were patrolling soldiers everywhere, and they were all superhumans, though their superpower levels weren't very high. Therefore, it was very easy for Mu Yan to evade them. When she is hidden in the shadows, she is almost impossible to spot. The upper levels of the mansion were not particularly easy to explore, as the Spear of Longinus could not possibly be hidden in such a place. They simply learned the layout of the place firsthand, and then quickly searched for the underground entrance. The entrance should be in Commander Sion's bedroom. Let's go straight there. Yang Xingxin said. He would definitely place the most important entrance in a place where he could easily enter and exit at any time. Following the shadows, Mu Yan evaded the patrolling soldiers and quickly made her way towards the commander's bedroom. As a bodyguard, Mu Yan was adept at all kinds of reconnaissance missions, and searching for hidden compartments and mechanisms in the bedroom was a piece of cake for her. After wandering around the bookshelves, carpet, and the commander's enormous bed several times, she found the entrance to the basement. The entrance was located under his large bed. The mechanism is located at the head of the bed, under the pillow. Once activated, the bed will sink down. Mu Yan didn't need to do that. She was a shadow, and she simply slipped into the ground along the crack. She moved through the shadows, and soon after, a bright light suddenly appeared before her eyes. Everyone saw a huge golden world. The light emanated from the very center of this world, from a majestic pyramid that stood tall. This underground palace is enormous, 5 or 6 times larger than the islands on the surface, and its height alone is 200 or 300 meters. Because that pyramid is nearly 200 meters high, it is golden and built from countless huge stones. At the very top of the pyramid stands a golden sun disk. This is where the Spear of Longinus is buried. Deng Shentong murmured, "I didn't expect to find it so easily, shall we?" Before he could finish speaking, everyone suddenly felt as if they were being watched. Only then did they see that next to that enormous pyramid lay a monster that looked both imposing and terrifying. It is as tall as the pyramids, with a huge, long body lying on the ground, and its face is that of a jackal wearing a 6-sided crown. The Sphinx is based on Anubis, the god of death in Kemet. At that moment, the statue of death turned its head and stared at the shadow that had appeared in this world. Its eyes were actually movable. Anubis, the god of death and the patron god of Kermit, has eyes that can see through the human world and the underworld, seeing things that ordinary people cannot see. This statue is the guardian left here by the commander. Not good. Mu Yan and the others immediately sensed that the guardians were trying to expel their will, because the sun disk above the pyramid had burst out with dazzling golden light, turning the whole world golden, and a magnificent power was pouring towards them. At that moment, Commander Scene, who was completely drunk in the banquet hall, suddenly opened his eyes. A chilling, killing intent emanated from him, causing the temperature in the entire banquet hall to drop significantly. Everyone was stunned, staring at their commander with pale faces. Many people even fainted because they couldn't withstand the pressure. Commander Sai was still sitting in the commander's chair, his hands on the armrests, his posture languid. But his gaze was incredibly sharp. Someone has broken into the underground palace. He said it calmly. Despite saying this, he showed no intention of getting up, and QEZ and the others around him remained unmoved. QEZ said, "Then he must be a very stupid guy." Commander Sai's cold eyes swept over everyone present. "It's been so long, and there are still people who want to challenge my authority. Interesting, very interesting indeed." Suddenly, a figure swept out from the crowd like a whirlwind. He was a tall, thin young officer who lunged at Commander-in-Chief, said from a distance of several dozen meters. At the same time, his body became incredibly bright, as if there was some kind of light source inside him that made his flesh transparent. When he flew into the air, less than 5 meters away from Commander Scene, The light emanating from his body reached its peak. Everyone instinctively closed their eyes, and the entire island shone with his light. Boom! A terrifying power erupted from his body. But soon, the dazzling light and the force of the explosion were extinguished. Commander Sai sat upright in his chair, gently raising the index finger of his right hand. A wisp of fire gathered at his fingertip, which I then clenched into my palm. Don Quixote, why would this guy plot a rebellion? Commander Saiyan tilted his head, his eyes full of confusion. Is it just because last time I made his wife take off her clothes and play with everyone here? The deceased officer was named Don Quixote, a local black officer who had reached the rank of major at a young age. He had once fought alongside Commander Saiyan through thick and thin, rising from poverty to success. I thought I could live a comfortable life, but everything changed after a banquet 2 months ago. Attending the commander's banquet was originally something he considered an honor. So he brought his wife, Alina, with him. Unexpectedly, after they had drunk themselves into a stupor and were completely drunk, the commander ordered his beautiful wife to strip naked and dance a traditional folk dance of the Cage Kingdom for everyone. The effects of alcohol, combined with the wild atmosphere, quickly overwhelmed Alina. When he woke up, all he saw was a mangled corpse covered by a white sheet. He had long since given up on living. He simply wanted to kill Ken said, the tyrant, to avenge his wife. His preparations today were undeniably thorough. He surgically sewed a specially made high-energy explosive directly into his abdomen, which would allow him to evade inspection upon landing on the island. Those explosives could level everything on the entire island, but he could never understand how powerful the mutants in the Epsilon region could be. Moreover, this is Commander Sion, a being whose abilities are close to those of a god to ordinary people. Zhang Yi suddenly opened his eyes, and Mu Yan's figure had returned to his side, quickly explaining what was happening inside the underground palace. Zhang Yi's gaze sharpened. Guardians. I thought Mu Yan's abilities would allow her to evade all the Guardians, but I never expected there to be such a special being in that underground palace. If even Mu Yan couldn't infiltrate, then there's no way anyone else could. In other words, is it impossible to secretly take away the spear of Longinus? He didn't panic. It's precisely in situations like these that one must remain calm. He sat in the room, and no one could escape his senses when they approached. If it really comes down to a fight, he won't be afraid of anyone. However, he did not expect that among the people attending the banquet would be officers like Don Quixote. Zhang Yi was unaware that this wasn't the first or second time such a thing had happened. The mad commander, Sion, is increasingly treating people as less than human beings, viewing everyone in the entire kingdom as his property and playthings. Even these upper-class figures in the inner city were often subjected to his relentless and cruel mockery. Flattery at a banquet is just one part of the game. Therefore, there will always be people who can't stand it and want to assassinate him. Even for Commander Sion, being assassinated was part of his game. He found it very interesting, like a giant dragon waiting for insects to assassinate it, the way it toyed with its opponents without them even realizing it, watching their expressions of despair, resentment, and anger. Just thinking about it would make Commander Sion want to scream with excitement. This time, Mu Yan and the others were exposed, which made Don Quixote think that he had been discovered, so he directly self-destructed. This conveniently covered up Zhang Yi's suspicion. Inside the banquet hall, the commander remained languidly seated in his chair, while pieces of meat fell from the sky with a plop, plop sound, landing on the ground and on the plates laden with food. Oh dear, why can't I ever learn? The commander sighed. The banquet hall was deathly silent. The commander pointed to the pieces of flesh and said, "Such a villain deserves to die a horrible death. Eat his flesh." The faces of the crowd twisted in disgust. Even they retain the most basic human qualities. To make them eat raw food is simply unbearable. The commander added, "If you refuse to eat, you'll be treated as an accomplice." As soon as he finished speaking, someone rushed up and started picking up the meat from the ground, chewing it in big mouthfuls. The others also came to their senses, because the commander-in-chief looked genuinely angry today. "If you don't eat, you'll die." Everyone disregarded their image and rushed over, crawling on the ground like dogs to pick up the scraps of meat, forcing themselves to swallow them despite their disgust. The sounds of chewing, accompanied by the sounds of vomiting, echoed throughout the banquet hall. The commander-in-chief burst into laughter, finding the scene very pleasing. On the other side, Zhang Yi didn't sleep all night. He was on high alert, waiting for the commander to make his move. But to my surprise, nothing happened that night. Commander Sai only saw Zhang Yi's exhilarating battle through the surveillance footage in the room. He became more and more satisfied with what he looked at. At a time like this, someone can still recklessly lust after women. Who could be more trustworthy than someone like that? The next afternoon, Zhang Yi opened the door, looking exhausted. The guards at the door subconsciously turned around and glanced inside. The mess inside was quite spectacular. An involuntary smile flashed in both of their eyes. Zhang Yi, in particular, looked extremely haggard at this moment. "Excuse me, is there a place to take a shower?" The commander's residence has a large bathhouse. He really liked the bathhouse culture of Huaxu Kingdom, so his bathhouse was exceptionally large. Led by the guards, Zhang Yi arrived at the bathhouse, took a refreshing shower, and then stepped into the bath to enjoy the cleansing effect of the natural hot spring on his body. Of course, at this time, Mu Yan and the others were kept out by him. It's impossible for them to see you completely naked while you're taking a shower, is it? It must be said that the commander knows how to enjoy life. Zhang Yi didn't even get to enjoy this hot spring. After all, there are no natural hot springs at the location of the Skycia fortress. When you soak in hot water, the various minerals nourish your body, and the feeling is so comfortable in the cold season that you want to scream out loud. Zhang Yi closed his eyes. He didn't need to shower, but after a busy night, not washing himself would definitely arouse suspicion. He had to go all the way with the act. He began to think about his next move. It's almost certain that the Spear of Longinus is in that underground world. Perhaps it's inside the pyramid, perhaps it's the pyramid itself, or perhaps it's the Sphinx. But the question is, how can one enter without Commander Xian noticing? This is a very difficult problem. Ultimately, it's because we currently have too little intelligence. Looks like I need to go to where Ken's scene started out. I should be able to find some secrets about the Spear of Longinus there. Zhang Yi murmured. Just then, he suddenly noticed someone had come into the bathroom. Zhang Yi lay in the bathtub, pretending to be tired and enjoying himself. But the person who walked in gave him a fright, because the person who came was none other than the commander-in-chief. The commander walked over casually, completely naked, and didn't stand on ceremony with Zhang Yi at all. But thinking about it carefully, it makes perfect sense. He already thinks he's a god, so why would he mind letting mortals see his body? Upon seeing Zhang Yi, Commander Sai greeted him with a broad smile. "Hey Wu, you had a pretty wild time last night, huh?" Zhang Yi chuckled. "Thank you for your hospitality, Commander. I will always remember your kindness and never forget it." Commander Sai stepped into the bath and lay down a distance away from Zhang Yi. "As long as you work hard for me in the future, you'll get all these things. You know, in this country, I can do whatever I want. Even if I have a dream at night, I can make it come true when I wake up the next day." Zhang Yi, as expected of a commander. Not long after the commander lay down, the door opened, and a dozen bikini-clad beauties walked in carrying plates. Women of all skin colors, each with a stunning figure and beautiful appearance, were carrying food, drinks, and even musical instruments. They approached the commander from behind, holding out food, fruit, and wine, and knelt beside him. They were waiting for only a glance from him before offering the food to his lips. Zhang Yi watched in stunned silence, his eyes filled with envy. The commander snapped his fingers. "How can we do without some music?" Several women carrying musical instruments immediately stood on the opposite side of the bath and began to play music. Zhang Yi exclaimed, "These are truly heavenly days." The commander said proudly, "Of course." After laughing for a while, he suddenly sighed. Zhang Yi quickly asked, "Commander, you possess the highest power in the world and enjoy the happiest life, so why are you sighing?" The commander seemed to have been waiting for Zhang Yi to ask this question. He turned to look at Zhang Yi, gave a faint smile tinged with bitterness. "Wu, since you know that I have done business in eastern Guangdong, you should know that my journey has been quite bumpy, and that I was not born into a wealthy family. I was born into a poor family in Uruguay. There were 7 or 8 brothers and sisters in my family. Most of them died of hunger or disease before they reached adulthood. I was kicked out of my home by my mother when I was 16, and I made a living by transporting bananas. Later, I went to work in eastern Guangdong with a businessman from my hometown. At that time, I had to endure the scorn of others every day and evade searches by the police officers in eastern Guangdong. I lived in constant fear." He lifted his arm out of the water with a splash. "So from that moment on, I vowed that I would make something of myself in this life, that I would make everyone respect me, admire me, and revere me." Zhang Yi was deeply moved. "Commander, you are now the supreme being. No one doesn't respect and admire you." A satisfied smile appeared on Commander Sane's face. Yes, that's what I thought after I became the king of this country. But he paused, his expression turning somber. It's lonely at the top. After I had everything, I realized I was all alone. How lonely I was. I have protected this country and given them a peaceful life, but they cannot understand my good intentions. Many people are outwardly respectful to me, but in reality they all want to kill me and take my place. Commander Sai suddenly became agitated. Especially those foolish people. They have forgotten the peaceful life I brought them. Don't they understand that even if I die, the next ruler will not be better than me? Zhang Yu was utterly speechless. So you enjoy life by exploiting others to the point of starvation, and expect them to be grateful to you. Zhang Yi, Commander Saiyan, they don't understand your good intentions, it's their fault. You are the guardian deity of the Kingdom of Cage. Even though I have been abroad for many years, I have heard of your legend. If it weren't for you, the Kingdom of Cage would have fallen long ago and been carved up by those European powers. Alas, these people don't understand your contributions at all. Commander Saiyan was very pleased with Zhang Yi's words. I knew you were a person who knew right from wrong. At this moment, Zhang Yi understood that he had completely gained Commander-in-Chief Saiyan's trust. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come naked to bathe with him. Wu, you won't betray me, will you? Commander Sai suddenly turned to stare at Zhang Yi, his tone somewhat serious. Zhang Yi feigned fear and quickly said, How could that be, Commander? You gave me so much money and even a place to live and beautiful women. My God, I swear you are the best person I've ever met in my life. Anyone who tries to harm you is my enemy, Wu Yanzu. A satisfied smile appeared on Commander Sain's face. That's right, a cook with little ability who is greedy and lustful is someone you can trust as long as you meet his demands. Commander Saiyan waved his hand and bestowed upon Zhang Yi a considerable amount of wealth. But don't even think about those girls, haha. Commander Sai pointed to the beautiful women around him and said proudly, They are the best women I've gathered from all over the country. I'm keeping them for myself. A hint of regret flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes, but he still pretended to be indifferent. Of course, I wouldn't have any inappropriate thoughts. Commander Sai was very pleased. Others coveted his woman but were forced to suppress their desires because of his authority. This made him very proud. Zhang Yi quickly came out of the bathhouse, or rather, he was chased out by Commander Sin because he had been delaying the commander's work. When Zhang Yi came out of the bathhouse, someone brought him new clothes to change into. They were all imported European designer brands. In addition, there were the rewards given to him by the commander, a whole cart full of them. Zhang Yi excitedly rushed over, his face beaming with excitement as he looked at the boxes of fine wine and cigarettes. Thank you, Commander. Thank you, Commander. Long live the Commander. Zhang Yi was so happy that he danced with joy. Under the eaves not far away, Qez, the captain of the guards, dressed in a black suit, looked at Zhang Yi. Through his glasses, his gaze was somewhat sinister. No matter how you look at it, there's nothing wrong with the identity of Wu Yanzu. But he always felt that there was a faint mist surrounding this person, as if everything was just a disguise. This feeling had no basis, in fact. It stemmed solely from his professional instincts. He had seen far too many people, and as the head of the intelligence agency, he had also received training in disguise. Therefore, his intuition was terrifyingly strong. The intelligence provided by his subordinates, the surveillance videos in the room, and the feedback from the women he was sent to serve him were all flawless. However, he just couldn't fully trust this man. Was he sent by the Holy See, or by one of those European countries that still harbor treacherous intentions? Qez frowned slightly. He turned around, and an agent immediately came over to await his orders. Go and call Colonel Park Changbayam over. Tell him I have a special mission that I need him to carry out. Upon hearing this, a look of surprise flashed across the eyes of his subordinates. Park Changbayam is a top-tier military expert in the Kingdom of Cage, and along with Choi Teek, he is one of Commander Sin's 5 most trusted confidants. It's unclear what kind of mission requires his services this time. It should be noted that Park Changbayam is unparalleled in the field of reconnaissance throughout the entire country of Cage. Yes, the agent immediately withdrew. Qez looked at Zhang Yi and came up with a plan to test him. Wu Yanzu, I will find out whether you are a spy or not. I trust my intuition. Zhang Yi could clearly feel a sharp gaze fixed on him, but he pretended not to notice. But a moment later, Qez walked up to him and patted him on the shoulder. Chef Wu, Qez said with a smile, you've only just arrived in Cage Kingdom and you've already gained the commander's trust. You have a bright future ahead of you. Upon seeing that the visitor was Qez, Zhang Yi quickly said, How dare I? It is all thanks to the commander's kindness. I am deeply ashamed. QEZ stared at Zhang Yi with a smile on his face, but his eyes were unfathomable. From now on, you must cook for the commander well. It will be your greatest honor. Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. However, you are ultimately a foreigner, and you don't know enough about the commander-in-chief or the country of Cage. You can go around and learn more about it. That way, you won't make mistakes or say the wrong thing in the future. Zhang Yi's heart skipped a beat. Choi Tichial told me to go out more. What does that mean? Oh, you want to explore more? I'll definitely visit Pulison more often if I have the chance. I think it's a very beautiful city. QEZ said to him, the place you should go to most is the commander's hometown. It is the sacred place of our Cage Kingdom. Find some time to go and see it. Feel the civilized atmosphere of our Cage Kingdom and understand the spirit of the commander. Zhang Yi could only say, well, of course I'll go. Choi Teek smiled, patted him on the shoulder, and then walked away. Zhang Yi was very suspicious. He definitely wants to go to Uruguay, but he has to find an opportunity to go there quietly. But why did QEZ want him to go to that place? If I'm not mistaken, QEZ still suspects him, so he deliberately sent him around Pulisang City and Yuru District to see if he would reveal any flaws. Because if he really were a spy, he would be most interested in intelligence about Commander Sion, and only secondarily in the situation within Cage. Boss, this guy seems really tough to deal with. Fatty Sue's voice echoed in Zhang Yi's mind. Is it difficult to deal with? Zhang Yi twitched her eyelids. I'm afraid he'll think he's being too clever for his own good. Zhang Yi returned to his current residence with a large pile of rewards, and his black girlfriend happily greeted him. Oh, darling, you're finally back. Her eyes were alluring, and she had been completely subdued by Zhang Yi and the illusion yesterday. Her gaze towards him was full of adoration. As she spoke, she brought out a bowl of enshima from the kitchen and handed it to Zhang Yi. Without wasting any words, Zhang Yi had Yang Xingxin shoot her with an arrow, sending her off into her sweet dreams. Let's start the investigation tomorrow. Zhang Yi spoke to the group that slowly emerged from the shadows. Ken said is a monster. If I hadn't been smart this time, I probably would have been exposed. Surrounding someone like that will only lead to trouble sooner or later. We need to find information about the Spear of Longinus as soon as possible without delay. So I decided to go to Uruguay. Zhang Yi shared her thoughts. Deng Shentong crossed his arms and asked, but that guy named QEZ is clearly setting a trap for you. Do you really want to go? Yang Xingxin analyzed calmly. He's using an open strategy. If you don't go, it means you have something to hide. If you do go, knowing that the other party will be monitoring you and being in an extremely sensitive environment, it's very easy for you to expose your weaknesses. Unfortunately, he misjudged one thing. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes, and everyone in the room smiled. That's right, QEZ misjudged one thing. That is, he simply couldn't imagine how terrifying this suspected spy in his eyes was, and that he wasn't alone, but had brought with him a team of the world's top mutants. Every member of this team is an elite in their respective field. Fatty Sue's inner thoughts, our team is really amazing. The next day, Zhang Yi slept until almost noon before getting up. Then, he went out openly and even called QEZ to borrow a car. Upon hearing the news, QEZ's lips curled into a cold smile. Okay, I'll have someone drive the car over to you right away. Don't rush, take your time to appreciate the beautiful scenery of Cage. He hung up the phone and instructed someone to send a car to Zhang Yi. At that moment, a voice rang in his ear. Who exactly is this person that you need to call me back from the front lines? The sound was extremely muffled and deep, coming from an unknown source. QEZ said, if it's not my imagination, then he's an extremely dangerous guy. Even I didn't notice him give himself away at all. The deep voice said, that's really too dangerous. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on him. Please, Colonel Park Changbei. The gaze stretches out, past QEZ's office building, and then upwards to the northern sky. 20 kilometers away atop a high-rise building sits a tall, slender man. Long hair obscures his face, but the wind blowing through it reveals a pair of incredibly sharp eyes. He was right there and clearly saw Zhang Yi walk out the door and get into the snowmobile. Zhang Yi specifically asked an agent named Yagu to be his guide. Yagu had not received any orders from QEZ to monitor him. He genuinely believed that he was there to be Zhang Yi's guide, so he politely introduced Zhang Yi to some famous attractions in Pulisang City. Because he knows nothing, he won't reveal any flaws. In Purison, most of the so-called attractions are actually indoors. The museum contains artifacts from the post-apocalyptic era, as well as a large number of weapons, shoes, toilet paper, disposable chopsticks, and other items used by Commander Tian during the war. As soon as you enter the museum, a poignant and tear-jerking song begins to play. How can I possibly repay your kindness, my commander? You are like the sun that never sets in the sky, warming the hearts of the people of Cage. We don't recognize anyone else in this world but you. You are more important than our lives. Ah, let us call your name once more, Commander Ken Sayin, our greatest father.